All right. Hey guys, let's take a look at 31,000 earthwork. So on our cover sheet, take a look at the table of contents. You'll notice that sheets C1 and C2 are directly related to our excavation and our grading and so forth. So if you go back to the spreadsheet on 31,000, you'll notice that we're really just looking for the excavation of the building slab, the fill for the slab, the excavation of the footings, and the backfill for the footings. So let's move on to the next page. And I'm not going to be able to read this one. So I think that 95% compaction to a modified Proctor is the first one. Soil is clay, and then they're using clean gravel for the fill underneath the slab. So let's go ahead and we'll move on here to the next sheet, and I will explain to you. This is C1. Now this is going to be, we'll be looking at this one for our utility work primarily. We don't really need this one yet for the excavation, so we really have to go to the grading plan for the excavation of this thing. So, and that's where we're at here. Sheet C2 is the grading plan, and what we have to understand here is that your finished floor elevation is 100, and if you look at the existing contours, you'll notice the hidden lines here. I've got 100 up here, and then down near this corner of the building I've got 98.5. So part of the building we have to cut, and that's going to be this side over here is cut, and then this side over here is fill. So where this line kind of divides the building, I've got 0 cut, 0 fill right here. So I've got a fill on this side because I'm actually lower than the subgrade that we're looking for, and I've got a cut on this side because we're much higher. So I have a 4-inch slab, and we have 4-inch granular fill, that clean granular fill, and so that is 8 inches, which if my finished floor is 100, my subgrade for this has to be 99.33. So 99 feet 4 inches is roughly where we're at. So that's what this line represents across here. This is 0 cut, 0 fill, and that's at our subgrade. So if I'm going to take and try to figure out what the fill is going to be on this, and you guys, this is not going to be the most accurate way to do this. This is quick and dirty. If you want to really do this by the book, go to page 227, and you'll have to do a cut and fill. You'll have to create a grid and do a cut and fill at each of the grids. So you want to do a smaller grid than this. This is just a big kind of an, I'd break this thing down into maybe 10-foot grids. So I'd have 4 in this direction, and then 8 in this direction, and then we'd do cuts and fills at each one of the grid lines, but that takes too much time. So in this one, if I come down here to my 98.5 and I go up to 98.33, I've got an 8-inch, roughly an 8-inch difference from this point to this line. So what I want to do is I want to take the area of this, and I want to multiply to find the volume of half of that 8 inches. So I'm going to take this area and multiply it by 0.33, and I should end up with something very close to 14 cubic yards right there, 14 cubic yards, and that's going to be a fill. So I've got to add dirt on this side, and I've got to take dirt away from this side. So same thing over here. I'm looking at the elevation on this corner and the line, and I'm basically going to do an average here. So I'll take the area of this shape right here, and I'm going to multiply it by, and what do we have here? We really have about, see, got a little bit more than 8 inches. So I'm going to just say it's a foot difference. So we'll multiply that times 0.5, and we end up with somewhere around 27 cubic yards. Now, I have to admit, my numbers are a little bit different than what they come up with in the book on this. So I've got a cut and I've got a fill on this side, and that's what I'm seeing here. Now, I think that fill for building slab, I'm not sure if that is that second line there. I need to clarify whether that's the gravel under the slab or if that's this piece. So I'm thinking it's this piece. So let's keep going here. The next items that we have to figure out are excavating the footing and then backfilling the footing. So I'm going to go to try to find a section cut through a wall section or something. Here we go. So I've already laid this out. I'm on sheet A5 and I want to zoom in. Well, I don't really have to zoom in here. So this elevation right here is where our subgrade is. If I'm cutting for the slab, I'm going to cut to that elevation. So if I've got my subgrade cut, then the next thing I'm going to do is excavate for the footings. So my footing depth is 2 foot 3 inches or 2 foot 4 inches, and my width on that is 2 foot. So I know my perimeter of my building's 240 feet, and so I would take these two and I would try to find I'd find the area, and then I'd multiply it, so it'd be 4.5 times 240, and then I'd divide that number by 27, and I get 45 cubic yards for the excavation. Now, I'm not taking into consideration any kind of shrink or swelling or anything like that. Again, this is crude, but actually it gets us pretty close to where we need to be. So the backfill on this, and look, if I'm only going down 2 feet from here, I don't have to bench this out at an angle. I'm just going to cut, and I'm going to use the excavation itself to form up this footing. Now, they're not telling us in the spec how we have to do this. They're not telling me I've got to form this. So I'm going to use my trench to form it. And so my backfill on this is just going to be these areas on the sides of the foundation wall. And so I've got roughly 8 inches wide by 16 inches high. It's really not a lot. So I've got 1.5 cubic feet, I think, something like that, times 240 divided by 27, and I ended up with actually 20 yards on the backfill. That seems a little bit high, but that's what I came up with. So that's how we did it. There's a lot of information in this chapter related to figuring excavations, and it can be somewhat complex, but you know, it is what it is. We're going to try to keep this simple and sweet, short and sweet, and use the numbers that we came up with here, okay? I will see you on the next video.